Welcome to Blue Talks.
Thank you so much for having me here at Oxford University. I'm excited to be here and to share a little bit about my story with the hopes that it'll help you or someone you may know that might be struggling with the same type of story. So maybe you can make sense of this a little bit when you hear what I'm talking about. As a child, I had an amazing childhood. I had 10 acres of land out living in the country with animals, horses, dogs, cats, sheep, a goat named Pearl, random animal. But we had all of these things at our fingertips and all these experiences on top of being able to travel the world to visit family who lived over in Singapore. We got to do all of these things, and yet at the core, I was always tired, I always had headaches, and I always felt sick. But the thing is, I was too young, or I just didn't know that I needed to drink before I was thirsty. So then I get into high school. I'm a normal teenager. I loved all the activities, the social events, the different projects at school. But one thing about me stood out, and not the positive way, is that I was tired all the time compared to the rest of my peers and my classmates. I was always tired. I felt sick all the time, but not enough to justify to my parents that I should stay home from school. The doctors said there was nothing wrong with me, but I just never felt well, and I struggled with headaches. I didn't know how to ask and to drink before I was thirsty. So then I get into college. You move into college, which brings on your whole other kinds of stresses. You're 17 or 18 years old, and now you need to decide what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. So I couldn't decide what to do because I was so excited about learning all kinds of things. I could have been anything. I could have gone into medicine. I could have gone into business. I could have been an astronaut. I mean, I just loved everything. But I decided to hone in on biology, microbiology, and then education so that I could teach this. So in college, I got sicker and sicker. I got depression to the point where I was diagnosed clinically depressed. I had no reason to be depressed because I had support, I had healthy relationships, I had a good family life, I was doing well in school despite how I was feeling, but I was depressed. I was more fatigued. It was really a struggle to even get through the day, and I struggled with headaches. I went to doctors to try to determine what is wrong with me. They did all the testing. I asked them, could you test my thyroid? Because I knew that thyroid had something to do with my energy level, because I was just too young to feel how I was feeling. And I was told your tests are normal, and you probably have those headaches because you're female, and females struggle with hormones. And also, I'm stressed out. You're a college student, you're stressed out. And I also had a situation with my dad. He was really sick. He was dealing with a chronic health condition that was not going to get better, and he was actually dying. It was a very stressful time, so I made it make sense. It made sense that I felt as terrible as I felt. It made sense that I was stressed out and tired and probably a little anxious being in college and not being sure how I wanted to pursue my degree and pursue my career. So I tried to drink before I was thirsty. I just did not get the support that I needed. So then we move into adulthood. I'm now teaching. So I started my teaching career teaching 7th through 12th grade science. I was the science department. I was the science department. I was the chair of the department. And I love that job. But I was in a situation where I got sick even more all the time. Every bug that came into the school, anything that a student brought in, I knew that I was gonna get that too, and I did. I was treated for chronic sinus infections. I had bronchitis on the regular. I felt like I had the flu all the time. That's a running theme too, just always feeling like I had this flu bug of some kind. Well, I got into my career where I was teaching just biology and anatomy and physiology. And I got, again, sicker and sicker. My fatigue was at an all-time low. I can only describe it as pregnancy fatigue. That's only, if anybody's been pregnant, they know what that fatigue might feel like. Not everybody gets that tired with it, but I did. And it's kind of the only way I can describe it. It was the worst feeling because I couldn't barely get up, get in the shower, go to work, much less take care of my own kids when I had to do things for their homework or whatever you do as a parent. It was a struggle. So I got into this teaching job where I was teaching just biology, anatomy, and physiology, like I'd mentioned. And the fatigue set in even more. And the flu type symptoms set in more. And that summer, it was the summer of 2007, I had gotten sick to the point where I was in bed many hours of the day during the summer. I had to hire my neighbor girl to come over and babysit my kids because I was too tired to take care of them. It was a struggle. I had gained a bunch of weight in a really short amount of time. I went back to school, or I was getting prepared to go back to school by going to my annual physical, getting more anti-anxiety meds, getting more antidepressant meds, and figure out what is wrong with me. And she said, "You have a nodule on your thyroid." But most of these are benign. 98% of them are benign, so it's really not that big of a deal. But just because of the size of it, we should get it checked out. So we went and checked it out. But before that, when she said it was benign, I just knew when I walked out of that appointment with a referral for the ultrasound, I knew that this was cancer. I just knew it was. So I went to that ultrasound. It came back normal. But she still said, "I think you need to go to an endocrinologist and get this checked out a little bit further." So I went to this doctor, or I was going to go to this doctor, but it was 8 weeks away. I was not gonna be able to see him for 8 weeks. And now I had this thing in there that I know is cancer, and I'm not gonna sit for 2 more months and not know what's going on. So luckily I had a connection with my brother-in-law. Somehow I had a connection with the head of endocrinology at a world-renowned facility in my area. So I showed up to that appointment with my labs and my images in hand, and he said, "That's okay, we do our own here." They did their own. I did the biopsies. A day later, I was diagnosed with metastatic papillary thyroid carcinoma, which means it had spread, and it had spread to my lymph nodes. And I teach this stuff, so I know what lymph nodes do. So kind of sets a little panic in there. But he told me, this is the easy cancer. If you're gonna get cancer, this is the one to have. You're actually kind of lucky to get this kind of cancer. So on one hand, I'm scared and terrified that I got diagnosed with cancer. But on the other hand, I was relieved. There was now an answer to all of my symptoms for all of these years. And now there was something we could do about it. So what we would do about it was surgery to remove the thyroid and the lymph nodes that were affected. So I had the surgery and 30 lymph nodes removed. Then there was radioactive iodine treatment and medication management for life. So I got that scheduled and went back to school. And ironically, or maybe not so ironically, I am getting ready to teach a unit in endocrinology in my anatomy and phys class. The first section was about the thyroid gland. And the first sentence said, "The thyroid gland affects every cell in the body." So I sat on the gravity of that for a little bit, and I thought, the thyroid gland affects every cell in the body, and they're taking mine away. They're taking it out. But because fear was driving this whole process for me, I did it. I went through the process, and I don't know that I would have done anything different still to this day, but I didn't ask questions. I just plowed through it, went to every appointment, every 4 to 6 months for 3 years, went to this place to go to check out what's going on with my symptoms. And I said, "I'm still feeling terrible. In fact, I feel worse. Thankfully, the cancer looks good. My labs look like the cancer is staying away, even though I did have a recurrence a year after the first surgery. I still felt horrible, and there was nothing that they were doing different. Just manage the medications, do your treatments, do your scans, and this is just how it is." So I kept pushing back. I kept trying to drink before I was thirsty. And I just said, "Can we try a new medication? Can we try a different combination of medication? Or what about my nutrition? what about that? What can we do about the nutrition? He just said to me, there's nothing to do. There's no more medicines to help you. This is how we treat thyroid cancer, and food doesn't affect how you feel. So I walked out of that appointment knowing I would never be back to this world-renowned facility, which is kind of hard to do when everybody, praises them, and it's kind of the end-all be-all of medicine in my area. And so I did not go back, but I found another endocrinologist closer to me who was willing to try at least one of those medications that I had been researching. And he said, there's some side effects potentially that might come with this medication, but you can try it, give it a couple weeks. You'll know within a couple weeks if it's going to be helpful. And if it's not, just let us know. We can switch, or we can change it up, maybe look for something else. It was within a few days where I started to feel better. I started to have a little bit more energy, less brain fog, and the lights started to turn on for me. The weight was lifted off my shoulders. So just that little crack in the door that opened, I took my cue to walk right through it. And I knew, because the one doctor said that food doesn't affect how I felt, then I knew that was my answer, that nutrition was key for me, along with the medication, of course, that helped get that ball rolling. So what I kept on deciding and seeing over and over and over again is that there had to be a new way. There had to be something different. We have a system that is reactive, has a reactive approach. It's not a proactive approach. And I was not being supported in that proactive way. I've tried for years since I was a teenager, and I kept being told, you're just getting older, your symptoms or your labs are normal, and just kind of, this is your new normal, just figure it out. So this new way includes nutrition and biochemistry. So this is nothing new. My undergraduate training and my graduate training shows me this. I know nutrition and biochemistry go together. Doctors know this. This is how they practice. They just practice in a different way, but they don't do it in a functional root cause approach. And so that's why I made the decision to quit my job, go back to school to become a board certified and licensed nutritionist in order to practice functional medical nutrition. And my business name is Rock Bottom Wellness, because I definitely had hit my rock bottom. And a lot of the people that reach out to me are really close to that, or they'll tell me, I've done everything. I've seen all the doctors. I've done all the fad diets, and you're my last hope. So no pressure. But this is what I do now to help other people have a same kind of story as mine. Everybody has their own story, their own different situations they're dealing with. I also help other holistic practitioners work with their clients so they learn to drink before they're thirsty as well. And like she mentioned, I wrote a book, published it, called The Rock Bottom Thyroid Treatment. And in my process to improve my health and get better, I kind of developed my own little method. And I didn't know that at the time, but it culminated in this book, where it is sort of my core process that I take almost everybody through in some way, shape, or form in order to overcome their health conditions. And it's to help them get to their root causes. And we, like I said before, look at functional deficiencies in their nutrients to help replenish the body so that they can feel and function their best. So 3 takeaways for you today. 3 ways that you can drink before you're thirsty and hopefully avoid getting to that rock bottom is to nourish yourself with healthy foods. I know that sounds pretty basic, because it is. So the next time you or someone you know thinks they should join some kind of fad, quick fix, gimmicky type of diet plan to lose 20 pounds in 10 days or something like that, don't do it. It's just going to keep setting you back and keeping your health not moving in the right direction. It's going to keep you going backwards. So you need to get back to basics with your eating. It really comes down to food. I had a client the other day who said, after we went through all this functional testing, going through all of her symptoms, and she's got a laundry list of symptoms, and she's miserable. And she looked at me and she said, it really just comes down to food, doesn't it? You're gonna tell me it comes down to the food. She said, I can take the supplements and I can go to the gym. Like, that's not enough. You need to get to the food. And so that was kind of she knows it, but she really understood it when we looked at all the pieces together. So the second way to drink before you're thirsty is to really focus on self-care and replenishment. And if that self-care for you looks like, getting a manicure or getting your hair done, that's fine, but let's go a little deeper than that. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's take the time to recenter yourselves, to ground yourselves, to really look into the things such as like meditation, prayer, journaling, whatever works for you is what you should do. But non-negotiable, 5 to 10 minutes a day, just start there. Make that a part of your normal routine, in addition to the back to basics eating. And then the third thing, if you are struggling and trying to get answers and you're told your lab tests are normal, in quotes, right? Normal. If your labs are normal and you still feel like garbage, you need to find a healthcare professional who will actually partner with you and be someone who will understand, have empathy, and truly understand where you're coming from and work with you towards your goals to feel and function your best. And then the last thing I'd like to share with you is we need to take action. So a lot of times people want sort of this passive process, and you need to listen to your body with what you need to eat, when you need to rest and all that kind of thing, but you also need to take action. You have to put yourself up front, not on the back burner. Okay, so maybe it feels like you're being selfish sometimes, do it anyway. Okay, you need to take care of yourself. And stop waiting for that perfect time. There's always a perfect time. We think that once our birthday is done, or the holidays, or a vacation, or whatever it might be, we think that then we'll start making those changes. The thing is there's always something, and you're gonna go down a year, 5, 10 years down the road, and you will have not made any changes, and you'll still feel like garbage. And I like to explain to people that it's much, much better and helpful to be consistently good versus occasionally perfect, okay? Just be consistent with making strides forward. So I'll just leave you with this quote by Sean Patrick Flannery. Do something today that your future self would thank you for, and that is to drink before you're thirsty. Thank you.